Good evening. Welcome to the Costa Mesa Planning Commission meeting for Monday, September 9th, 2019. I call the meeting to order and ask Commissioner Navarro Woods to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, Commissioner Navarro Woods. Julie, roll call, please.
Chair D'Erico.
Here.
Vice Chair Harlan.
Here.
Commissioner Colbert.
Here.
Commissioner Navarro Woods. Here. Commissioner Russell. Here. Commissioner Torje. Here. And Commissioner Zick.
Here.
Great. Thank you very much, Julie. We have no announcements and presentations tonight. That brings us to public comment. To ensure fair and equal treatment of all who appear before the Planning Commission and to expedite city business, speakers may be limited to 3 minutes during public comments to speak on any item within the Planning Commission's jurisdiction, which is not listed on the agenda this evening. The chair or a majority vote of the Planning Commission can extend time. Is there anyone wishing to speak to public comment tonight? Yes, please.
So I hope you're all paying attention how Newport Beach is trying to stick their homeless shelter in west side Costa Mesa, right? So everybody get to the meetings in Newport Beach. Start speaking up. Oh, you always do that to me. Give me back my time. Nobody
You know what?
remembers
I'm
me.
sorry. Go ahead. Ann, you're right. I'll give you 15 more seconds.
Okay, so the city of Newport Beach is trying to stick 2 homeless shelters on
Thank
the
you,
west
Julie.
side of Costa Mesa. We're not against homeless shelters. We're not being prejudiced, Mr. Colbert. We are not being prejudiced. We just know what happens when there's groups of people that are not normal residents of the neighborhood. Normal just meaning connected to the city. It doesn't matter what race, what gender, what. So here we go again. There's something coming up on the consent calendar, which we'll be talking about. So last week I met with an FBI agent, and I told him how people are saying that we're being discriminatory because, for instance, as a female, I feel uncomfortable if 2 guys in hoodies come up behind me. Now, Jesse Jackson wrote an article, the same thing. When you get 2 or more, any race, wherever you are as a female, and then he said, no, I'm an FBI agent. I feel the same way. If some guys come up behind me in hoodies, young, he's in very good shape and he's carrying a gun. Your radar goes up. It's not just a misperception, it's an intelligent perception. So let's get real here about what we're talking about in the next consent calendar thing. You cannot have groups of parolees, fraternity house situations in residential neighborhoods. This is not a good mix. Where the facility was prior out on Red Hill, I'm sure you've all been by it, where the Orange County Mental Health Facility was, there were no problems. It didn't cause a problem in the neighborhood, but where they are about to put this, watch out, okay. Next.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
All right, this is my first time, so I'm going to try to stick it within time. Hello, Planning Commission. Thank you for the opportunity to voice concerns regarding the decision to move the County of Orange Healthcare
Sir,
Facility.
can I interrupt you a quick second? We're not at that item yet.
Oh, sorry.
So this was just public comment. Ms. Parker was speaking on, just generally speaking, and the Newport Beach looking at. So you'll have your opportunity to speak when that item obviously is going to get pulled.
You're right.
And just reference, and I think Ms. Parker you also know this, Mayor Foley has sent a letter to the city of Newport Beach wanting to discuss options.
Yes.
So we'll see how that goes. Okay. Seeing no one else on public comments, I'll close public comments and we'll go to Planning Commissioner comments, and we'll start with Commissioner Torje.
None tonight.
Okay. Commissioner Russell.
Nothing tonight.
Commissioner Zick.
Nothing, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Colbert.
Nothing tonight.
Okay. Commissioner Navarro Woods.
Yes, a couple comments. First of all, I wanted to thank our staff and Arts Commission for the art venture. I went on Saturday and it was super fun. And our chair, D'Erico, had 2 pieces there, two photographs, and they were beautiful. So anyway, my family had a great time, and hopefully we can make another one. The second thing is, this is my last planning commission meeting. My family and I are moving, and this is it for me. And I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity to serve at City Costa Mesa. It's been fulfilling. Ms. Parker, you're always wonderful, and I hope you'll continue coming and saying what you think, and I appreciate all of that. I think citizen activism is really the most, like, the essential component to all of this, because sometimes, you know, we may miss something, or we come in with our own perceptions and experiences that we, you know, that drive our decisions. Oh, is that my time? Oh, anyway, we love Costa Mesa. Our heart will be here. Our home will still be here. So it's not goodbye. It's more like, see you later. Thanks.
Thank you. I'll have some comments. Vice Chair Harlan.
Sure. Well, I'll take the opportunity to thank my fellow commissioner for her service. She's been here since the beginning with us, Byron and I. Commissioner Navarro-Woods has always been incredibly thoughtful and diligent. You do your homework more than anybody. It puts us to shame. So somebody's going to have to pick up the mantle and do that. And I just want to thank you for bringing an important perspective to our discussions. I've always learned everything. Every time you've spoken, something new has come up that I hadn't thought of or others haven't. So I appreciate you making us think. And again, I don't know, every time there's a woman who sits to my right, she leaves here in this chamber. So I'm going to leave it at that.
Very good. Make sure your wife sits on the left all the time. A couple of comments. I want to kind of echo Commissioner Navarro-Woods' comments about Art Venture. This was the 5th year that we've had it, the 3rd year that I've been fortunate enough to participate in it. And this year was the biggest in terms of crowd, in terms of the number of participating artists, 135, number of pieces of art. And it was really, really well done. And so I wanted to, my hat goes off to the Costa Mesa Cultural Arts Committee, and certainly Charlene Aschendorf, who's kind of the general that runs the whole thing. Ashley Thomas from the city, who did a terrific job. And all the members of the community from not just Costa Mesa, but I met people throughout Orange County who came to it and have heard about it now. And it's really growing into a prestigious art show of Costa Mesa and Orange County artists. So next year we'll be having it again, and I hope to be participating again, and I hope everyone will come out and see it. So a job well done by all. Carla, I want to wish you all the best. I really appreciate your service to the community, your passion for the work you've been doing on the Planning Commission. As I told you on the phone today, your perspective that you bring, which I think is really important, and all the good questions you've always asked. And I wish you nothing but the best for your family and you, and the great opportunity that you have before you, and look forward to seeing you when you come back. Okay? Thank you. Okay, that brings us to the consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered routine and will be acted upon in one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless members of the Planning Commission staff or the public request specific items to be discussed and or removed from the consent calendar for discussion. Items removed from the consent calendar will be discussed and voted upon immediately following Planning Commission action on the remainder of the consent calendar. Members of the public who wish to discuss consent calendar items should come forward to the microphone upon invitation of the chair. We have 3 items on the consent calendar tonight. And does anybody wish to pull any of those items? Yes, which ones? Item number 1. Okay, so we'll be pulling item number 1. I need to let the commissioners know that I will be recusing myself from that item, as my residence is within 500 feet of that property. So after we vote on the balance of the consent calendar, I will be leaving the chambers, and Vice Chair Harlan will be leading that particular item. So, commissioners, I would ask if there is a motion on the balance of the consent calendar, items number 2 and 3. Okay, motion by Vice Chair Harlan. Is there a second? Okay, well, let's say, so a motion by Vice Chair Harlan for the balance of the consent calendar with a second by Commissioner Zick, and we'll call for the question. Yeah, so go to your mouses, Commissioners. Is the mouse working? Okay, motion is closed. Just love this new system. Okay,
That motion carried 7-0 to move consent calendar items 2 and 3.
okay, and I will depart the chambers.
All right, Julie, consent calendar item number 1.
Consent calendar item 1 is general plan conformity resolution for the County of Orange Healthcare Agency's proposed use at 2801 Bristol Street.
We have a staff report.
Thank you. Vice Chair and members of the Planning Commission. Jennifer Lee, Assistant Director of Development Services, and I'll be giving the report this evening. This is a request for a general plan conformity finding for 2801 Bristol Street. For certain actions related to public property, Government Code Section 65402 requires the city's planning agency to review and report on the proposal's conformity with the city's general plan. This is not an approval or a denial of the project per se, but rather a report on general plan conformity. In this case, the County of Orange Healthcare Agency is proposing to relocate its youth and adult behavioral outpatient programs from its existing location at 3115 Red Hill to office space at 2801 Bristol. The use is a service use and would include individual and group counseling services, medication monitoring, case management, patient advocacy, consultation and linkage to treatment services, as well as crisis intervention. The project site is located on the west side of Bristol Street between Bear Street and Newport Boulevard. The property is zoned CL Commercial Limited and has a general plan land use designation of general commercial. The site is bound by commercial uses to the north, south, and across Bristol Street to the east. The properties to the west are single-family residential. Staff evaluated the use related to the general commercial land use designation. The general commercial land use designation is intended for a wide range of commercial uses that serve both local and regional needs. Appropriate uses in this land use designation could include retail, markets, service establishments, and support office uses. The county's proposed use meets the intent of the general commercial designation in that it provides a proposed use that includes support of administrative, service, and counseling services to both local and regional populations. As a result, the county's use of the property would be in conformance with the general commercial land use designation. In addition, staff evaluated conformance with the general plan's goals and policies and objectives. As described in the land use element, it's the city's goal to ensure availability of adequate community facilities and provisions of the highest level of public services possible, taking into consideration budgetary constraints and effects on the surrounding area. The county's proposed use would provide the local and regional community with a facility that would provide publicly administered programs and services to treat mental and behavioral health. The proposed use would primarily offer services during normal business hours for an office in an established commercial area. As a result, staff found that the proposed use is consistent with the general plan goals and policies in that regard. As a result, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution finding that the county's proposed use, which does include individual and group counseling, at 2801 Bristol in conformance with the Costa Mesa General Plan. The Planning Commission did receive one public comment on this item, and that was included in your red folders. That concludes staff's presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. Commissioners, any questions of staff?
Mr. Vice Chair.
Mr. Zick.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Lee. You mentioned something about this government code section being applicable to publicly owned facilities. Are both of these buildings, the one on Red Hill and the one on Bristol, owned by the county?
The county is proposing to lease the space at 2801 Bristol. They are privately owned.
Is the one on Red Hill privately owned also?
It's my understanding that it is, and the county has a lease there.
So does this government code section, does it apply then, it must, to lease properties that the county has or that the county would propose to lease?
Yes, it applies to both purchase, sale, vacation, as well as lease.
Commissioner Zick, the term the government code uses is the acquisition of property.
Okay, thank you for that. And you mentioned on the Bristol property, the commercial limited and general commercial zoning. Can you tell me what the zoning is for the facility on Red Hill?
Yes, give me one moment here. Thank you. It is MP manufacturing.
Okay, and I'm assuming because they're existing there that the MP zoning would accommodate this sort of use without any conditional use permit?
The MP zone is an industrial use, is an industrial designation. It does not allow in general for office uses. Let us check the zoning code quickly. However, we did look at what approvals were given to that property in the past. The city made a general plan conformity finding for that property, but as far as we can tell, there were no permits that were processed. That is likely because it is a county proposal, and the county in certain circumstances in the past has preempted local zoning controls. That's likely what happened in that case.
Okay. And in terms of noticing for the Bristol location, was there noticing sent out to all property owners within 500-foot radius?
For a general plan conformity finding, it isn't a public hearing and no public notice is required. It's only placed on the consent calendar.
So but what I'm hearing you say is that a property owner that might be, the residents that would maybe back up to this property would not know anything at all about this proposed use?
It would be on the Planning Commission agenda as a consent calendar item.
Okay, and then my question about the general plan conformance finding that you made. If there were several other nearly identical businesses or activities, operations to this, would you take into consideration the amount of concentration of this kind of activity in one specific location for general plan conformity, or would you simply say this use is compatible with this zoning, therefore it's conforming?
We're primarily looking at the compatibility of the use itself with the general plan land use designation, as well as the compatibility of the use with the goals and policies of the general plan. We would not look at surrounding uses necessarily, but we would evaluate each proposal on its merits individually.
Okay, and you anticipated my next question about surrounding uses. Do you happen to know if the county is planning on vacating the Red Hill property as part of their proposed project?
That's our understanding from speaking with them. Their intention is to relocate their services to this new location from Red Hill.
Do you know if they're here tonight, or can you answer the question why they're proposing to move?
I don't think they're here tonight. Nancy has had a lot of conversations with the county about this proposal, so let me get back to you on this question.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Commissioners, any other questions? Last chance?
Yeah.
Commissioner
I have
Horowitz.
a couple. Okay, so I actually called Tanya Trujillo. She's the county executive office real estate agent for the county. And she said that they were moving because they needed a bigger space, more offices for staff, a larger conference room. They were just growing out of their new location, their current location on Red Hill. The Red Hill space was 9,000 to 10,000 square feet, and this one is 15,500. So they're going to increase their space by 50%, and that was what they were looking for. I asked if it was going to be staffed entirely by county employees, and she said yes, it's going to be a county facility entirely staffed by county employees. I asked her about what sort of services they provide, and she mentioned that it's children and youth services is about 60% of the patients that they service, and then adult behavioral health patients are the remaining 40%. And then I was trying to get some information on how many patients do you have? What's your workload from day to day? How many cars can we expect to come in and out of? And she didn't have that answer for me. So do you guys know specifically, did you guys ever discuss, what their typical client load is on a weekday?
When our staff spoke to them, they gave similar information as to their reasons for wanting to relocate, primarily that they were outgrowing their space. We did ask similar questions as related to client load and other things. They did not have that specific information for us at that time.
Okay, thanks. That's all for me.
Okay, commissioners, any other questions? Seeing none, I'd like to open it up to public comment. So members of the public, please come to the dais.
Second attempt. Okay. Hello, Planning Commission. Thank you for the opportunity to voice concerns regarding the decision to move the County of Orange Healthcare Facility 2801 Bristol Street. My name is Richard Yurchurtu, and my company Client Boost is at 2787 Bristol Street. We just recently purchased the building. We share the parking lot with 2801, so this potential lease affects our business most of all. It is my understanding that because this lease agreement is being submitted by the County of Orange, this Planning Commission can only decide if this new location would conform to the city's general plan. However, I believe this commission should still take into account how this type of business entering this area will reflect on the stated vision of the city of Costa Mesa's general plan. The vision being stated as protecting and enhancing our diverse residential neighborhoods, accommodating an array of businesses that serve both local needs and attract regional and international spending, and continuing to provide cultural, educational, social, and recreational amenities that contribute to the quality of life in the community. While I understand that a healthcare facility such as this is needed in this day and age to help those affected by substance abuse and mental disorders, such a facility being at this location will have ramifications that impact the neighboring businesses and residential areas. Currently, 2801 Bristol Street is occupied by a rehab facility. Even with their tight security team, we have experienced theft, vagrants, and harassment from their patients. We are not confident that the County of Orange will take the appropriate measures to ensure the safety of the surrounding businesses, ours most of all, and residential locations from their patients in various states of crisis. A short walk from 2801 Bristol Street is the home to the lab and the camp, a growing number of breweries. These vibrant retail and restaurant locations add to the city of Costa Mesa's economy and create a rich area for investment and growth that will be hampered by having a rehab facility in close proximity. Furthermore, having a facility for substance abuse within walking distance to several bars, I would say, is not in the best interest of the patients of the County of Orange. Finally, I would say that sorry, I can't remember the name. John was mentioning businesses have not been notified in this area, so you haven't necessarily seen a full representation of what the public's reaction might be to this. I can say that our business and others will be lobbying the city of Costa Mesa and this commission to not approve the lease within our area, and the city of Orange and the planning commission should instead keep up the debate to decide a facility that is zoned in an industrial park away from this high traffic commercial zone that is better left for investment. That is all. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.
Well, first of all, thank you for coming. So Friday when I saw this, I didn't even have to go look at the building. I happened to know this is Windward Way Recovery. You know, they're suing us. Everybody got the big picture? And since they're in trouble a little bit with legal issues, et cetera, and so what a lot of these sober living places are doing, they're now pretending to be mental health facilities. Did you see last city council meeting? Did anybody watch that? Okay, all right, got it. So now a lot of these facilities are doing this. So here's Mr. Broderick with his fabulous building that he made so much money on his sober living houses that he was able to buy a building on Bristol Street. This is not a well-run business. Windward Way, if anybody lives near one of these facilities. So why would you want to put a mental health facility in your building when you're trying to help people recover? Now, the reason I know this is such a bad idea is because the Methodist Church on 19th and Harbor rented their second floor to be one of these facilities, and guess what went on? The people went up to get their meds and their drug testing, et cetera. Then they came downstairs and sold their drugs to the guys from the rehab houses that were going through AA meetings. You could sit outside and watch it, and how do I know that? Because I talked to them. I found out what they were doing. You could see the drug dealing going on right there. And there were 1,000 parolees a week going through that Methodist church. So it was in the paper. So Police Chief Gazy and some other people had to go and shut the operation down because it was affecting all the businesses in the neighborhood, El Dolce restaurant, all the people that live around there, the apartments. For one thing, I'd like to know, why in God's name would this be a consent calendar item? This is a huge issue. Neighbors aren't notified, home residences aren't notified, businesses aren't notified. They didn't know anything about it till Friday when I just started knocking on doors. Why am I doing this? Why wasn't this put before the Planning Commission? This is really serious stuff.
Thank you. Seeing no more public comment, commissioners, emotions, comments?
Mr. Vice Chair?
Commissioner Zick.
So I had two questions I wanted to follow up with staff. So I noticed on Google Maps this Windward Recovery on a building there on Bristol. Do you know, is that an existing operation?
You're talking about at the site address 2801 Bristol?
Yes.
They're the owner of the property, and Casa Capri, which is a different counseling center, operated at that facility at one time. They've since relocated. Windward Way submitted an application to the city to allow for group counseling at the same address, and then subsequently withdrew the application. So I don't believe that they're there now.
So the question that I was going to ask is if this county operation is leasing up the entire building, or is it a demised space and Windward Recovery still controls part of the building?
The county has indicated to us that they intend to lease the entire building.
Okay, and then did you have a chance to look at that MP zoning and whether this use is compatible or how it's compatible with that?
Yes, in the MP zone, this type of use requires a minor conditional use permit.
Okay. Mr. Vice Chair, I'm prepared to make a motion.
Okay.
I find that this conformity resolution is not in conformance with our general plan, and I would be very concerned about approving it. So I've got comments, but my motion is to not approve of this item.
So you're recommending denial. Your motion is to deny
That is correct.
staff's recommendation. Okay. Do we have a second? You can just voice. Commissioner Colbert, do you have a second? Yes. Okay.
Commission, if I may, I just wanted to clarify the motion. It would be then a motion to find the proposal not in conformance with the general plan. Is that right?
Correct.
Thank you.
You have a comment?
I
Commissioner
did.
Zick?
So I'm concerned about several things about this. So I'll put all my comments out there. My first thought when I saw this on the consent calendar was that with my experience on the Planning Commission, this did not seem like a routine item to me, like approving minutes or maybe like the other items that we have on this agenda. So I was happy to see a member of the public interested in the discussion of this item, and had they not, I would have. The fact that an item like this puts a use immediately adjacent to residential property to me is a little bit concerning, but more concerning than that is the fact that the residents were not notified about this. And I understand, I guess, the process, but I don't like that. I think this is too important for there not to have been noticing of the adjacent property owners. Specific, though, to the idea of the conformancy, the zoning is for commercial use, and as the staff report indicates, would include such things as retail, markets, service establishments, support offices, and to my way of thinking, those commercial uses would be the kind of uses that people in the community would take advantage of. Retail, markets, service establishments would be a variety of things. And I'm not convinced, and didn't have an opportunity without an applicant here, to find out to what extent these public services are local or regional. And when you tuck it into a residential neighborhood, if it's not for local support, then I'm a little bit concerned. The fact that the windward recovery is there, and from comments from the public is still in operation, doesn't give me confidence that they won't continue to be in operation in the area. And then I'm concerned about an overconcentration of this use, again, in close proximity to residential. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other comments? Commissioner Colbert?
I second this for a couple of reasons. I kind of struggle with this looking at it because initially it looks like a use by right. However, as Ann and others have stated, in addition to Commissioner Zick's comments, this is concerning given that there was no noticing. And I think that this type of change should be noticed to the community, given that it will impact those in proximity to the community, specifically unrelated to violence or other comments that have been made related to people whom have not been convicted of anything or we don't know of past convictions, but simply due to the fact that this use will particularly change the dynamic of the community. In addition to the fact that I actually pass this current facility on a daily basis and see the impact as it relates to parking in near my community. In addition to my concerns as how it may impact, I just would like to speak to the applicant to better understand what their parking plan will be for this area, especially with such an increase potentially in services. And I think there are a number of unanswered questions that I would like to know from the applicant, even though it seems like it fits you just by zoning. I think we have to really think what we're doing in a long term to this area.
Thank you, Commissioner Colbert. I have a question for staff, unless anybody else has other comments, questions. So I believe, Ms. Lee, you had said in response to one of Commissioner Zick's questions that the county would require a minor conditional use permit for this use.
In this zone, our zoning code would require a minor conditional use permit. However, what I mentioned was in the past, when the county has had facilities in the city, they often cite their preemption authority and do not go through the local zoning process.
Okay. So at this moment, they haven't put together a formal proposal for the actual location. We don't have plans. It's simply a matter of a use conformance issue tonight.
That's correct. Their request is for a general plan conformity finding under state law, and their specific submittals were attached to your staff report. There are no specific plans or an application for a minor conditional use permit, for example. Staff has asked the county whether they intend to go through the minor conditional use permit process, and they have not indicated whether they would or would not at this point.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Colbert?
In the past, when we have had issues related to the county, did they come back before the commission, or would they be amenable to that option? Has that happened in the past, in your experience?
I have not seen a county when they felt that they had preemption authority. I have not seen them opt to go through the zoning process. The idea with preemption is that the county has a board of supervisors that is also an elected body who has public hearings, and that discussion happens at that level.
Okay, Commissioner Torje?
All right, quick question. If we go along with the motion that Commissioner Zick made, what would be the next step for the county if could they decide to use their preemption in this situation?
What would happen if this motion passed? Staff would modify the resolution to indicate that the Planning Commission could not make the finding of conformity with the city's general plan. We would issue that resolution and provide a copy to the county. The county would consider that information, but other than that, they would move forward with their normal process at the county's level.
So is that decision then, whatever we make tonight, appealable to the council?
Generally, the decision is not appealable to council. However, I've not looked at that precise issue. Although what staff is basically indicating is that this determination, whether it's approved or not approved, if it's denied, that's not going to have any legal effect on the county to go ahead and continue with the use.
Okay. So, Commissioner Torje, did you have another question?
I guess it's not a question, it's just, so it seems like they're going through this process just to get the approval to change the general plan conformity, but it's more of a technicality for them.
They are required by state law to request a general plan conformity report from the city. They made that request, and the city has 40 days to respond under state law. Their request is only for the city to make a report as to general plan conformity, not to change anything in particular about the general plan.
Thank you.
Okay, commissioners, any other questions, comments? Commissioner Colbert.
Just out of curiosity, I understand that the general plan conformity items are often on the consent calendar. Is there a threshold in which we kind of think about potential use impacts and what they may have when thinking about general plan conformity, to where we may not put it on a consent item, but put it on the regular agenda?
As a matter of practice, general plan conformity items, just by virtue of the fact that they're a reporting item, are placed on the consent calendar. I can work with the attorney's office and see if there's another option. I'm not sure that there is, but we can report back to the commission on that possibility.
So as a matter of procedure, since this seems to be kind of a perfunctory step for the county. If we end up supporting Commissioner Zick's motion, then the county can choose to ignore that or just proceed as they would. My concern is that that seems to eliminate our constituency, our Costa Mesa citizens' opportunity to address this directly with the county, other than going to the county board of supervisors. It's more of a comment than a question, unless, of course, that I'm incorrect in that procedure.
That is correct.
Mr. Vice Chair.
1 second, Commissioner Torche had beat you to it.
I was just going to say, as a follow-up to that, do we have, will this go before the Board of Supervisors so that the city, residents in the city have an opportunity to talk with them, or do we know what the process is at the county?
We have asked that question as well of the county staff. I don't know the answer to that. I would suggest, however, that the County Board of Supervisors, like the City Council, is an elected body. Therefore, our residents, being residents of the county as well, are free to attend those board meetings and make comments on any county project. But I don't know the exact county process.
Thank you.
Commissioner Zick?
Well, so what I'm gathering is maybe a little bit discouraging to me. What I'm hearing you say is whether we approved or found conformity or not has little effect or no effect on what the county would intend to do in terms of moving forward with the implementation of their plan. And first of all, am I hearing that correctly?
That's correct, and from a procedural perspective, I would like to think that the county considers the city's determination on general plan conformity very seriously, and I'm going to assume that that is what happens.
So, and I'd like to assume that as well, but let me kind of poke at it this way. If they simply receive something that says a planning commission, not that we're unimportant, but if the extent of the feedback they get is that this body did not find conformity. And we haven't had the city council involved or take action and I'm not saying the city council would, and I'm not suggesting that the city attorney would, but had there been an interest by higher authorities in the city to try to stop this from moving forward, what process would need to occur for this plan to be stopped?
Essentially, this is a county project and a county effort to lease property. So the process to influence that decision would be to show up at the County Board of Supervisors meetings, to communicate with the county board and with county staff.
Okay, thank you. I hope somebody from the council is watching this meeting. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Zick. So in a nutshell, it seems like the county's or the city's planning process is very limited in scope with regard to the county's proposal. This is more of a comment. My concern is that, as I had mentioned before, that it doesn't really give our residents an opportunity here to make their objections or concerns known. On the issue before us, as far as conformance, I have a hard time seeing that this proposal does not conform with our general plan, but I am concerned that we don't have an opportunity here to really raise these issues. So that's my comment at this point. Unless we have other comments, I'd like to call for the question on Commissioner Zick's motion.
Original question, his original motion.
Julie?
It's not in conformance with the general plan, correct?
Is that correct, Commissioner Zick?
Are we voting that it's in conformance or not?
That it is not.
Not in conformance.
Not in conformance, okay, got it.
Yes, I'll call for the question.
So that motion carries, it carries 5-1 with Vice Chair Harlan voting no and Chair Dirickle recusing himself.
Okay, thank you, Julie. So we are on to the remainder of our agenda, and
Sorry, I'm having issues with vote links, so it's,
the motion carried 5-1.
it was 5-1.
Yes. So at this point, I'll call back our chair. I did, thank you. Come back for some fun.
Thank you, Vice Chair, for handling that item. That brings us to public hearing item number 1. Julie, please.
Public hearing item number 1, planning application 19-17 for a conditional use permit to allow a restaurant and bar with live entertainment to operate after 11 p.m. at the Shops at Mesa Verde Shopping Center at 1555 Adams Avenue, Suite 100. This is a call to report any ex parte communications.
Commissioners, are there any communications to report on this item? Okay, I will say I had a telephone conversation with Justin McCusker from C.J. Segerstrom and Sons on this item. And anyone else have any communications on
Yes,
it? Vice Chair Harlan.
Likewise, I had a brief conversation with Mr. McCusker on this item.
Okay. On this item, staff is asking that we move a continuance of the item until the Planning Commission meeting of September 23rd. So I'm going to go ahead and move that the item be continued to Planning Commission meeting of September 23rd. And I'm trying with, there we go. Is there a second? Okay, well, I know I seconded it, or made the motion. Okay, I heard Commissioner Colbert is. It is. It's kind of like Final Jeopardy. Everybody's kind of. All right, so there's a motion on the floor to continue the item until the 23rd by the chair, seconded by Commissioner Colbert. Call for the question, please. I really hope this new system didn't cost any more than $19.95
That
off the
motion
shelf.
carried 7-0.
Thank you, Julie. I'm sorry I ran over your announcement of the vote. Carried 7-0. All right, great. Thank you, commissioners. Mr. Mejia, Public Services Report.
No reports tonight.
Mr. Curtis, Development Services.
I have none this evening, Mr. Chairman, but I would like, on behalf of my staff and I, to thank Commissioner Navarro Woods for her service. It's been a pleasure working with you for the past 2.5 years or so. We really appreciate your service and your perspective and your passion. It's been a pleasure to work with you, and we will miss you. But I am looking forward to having you back sometime in the fairly near future to formally recognize you for your service. So thank you again.
Thank you. Very nicely said, Mr. Curtis. Mr. Preziosi, City Attorney Report.
Briefly, as everyone is aware, in the SoCal recovery case where they have sued the city in federal district court on account of the city's multifamily ordinance regulating sober living homes, they had brought a motion, a preliminary injunction motion, to enjoin the enforcement of Costa Mesa's sober living home ordinances pending trial in the matter, as well as seeking attorney's fees for their cost of having to do so. The court has recently denied that motion and denied their motion for attorney's fees, which means the city of Costa Mesa will continue to enforce its ordinance through trial.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Preziosi. That is indeed good news. And with that report, we will stand in adjournment till the regularly scheduled Planning Commission meeting for September 23rd, 2019. Good night.